You're with Julian on Browner and a review, finally, of Time to Die, the latest James Bond film and the final one featuring Daniel Craig. Directed very interestingly this time around. I'm not a Sam Mendes fan at all. I did not like his tenure as a Bond director, and I don't like any of his other films, really. I think American Beauty was, a film that everyone loved when it came out, and then 5 seconds later went, oh, it's a bit cringe, actually. But I haven't liked his stuff. Kerry Joji Fukunaga directed a film in 2009 called Sin Nombre, which I gave 9 out of 10 to on this show. A magnificent, devastating film about people fleeing, I think, El Salvador and trying to get to America aboard the roofs of trains and being persecuted by gang members. It was a pretty hardcore watch, but a brilliant film. And he's done, not much, but everything he seems to have touched has been quality so far. Jane Eyre and Beast of No Nation with the two major films, both got really good reviews. And True Detective, the first season, which is the one that got the most acclaim, he directed and produced that as well. He's back for No Time to Die. A film that may not have happened. I think everyone expected Spectre to be the last Bond film, due to the fact that big budget films like this take longer to make nowadays. So instead of pumping out a Bond film every 2 years, he's been Bond for much longer than anyone else. It's just the amount of time that is involved. And it's been a very successful tenure as Bond. No one has had a complaint about him. But for me, the films have been very up and down. Casino Royale, I think, was third in my list of the greatest ever Bond films. So last year, I ranked them all. And I think Casino Royale, that masterpiece, was third. Behind Goldfinger and The Spy Who Loved Me, which was my number one. And my last film on the whole list, the worst Bond film of all, was Spectre, which is the last Bond film before this film. So I don't know whether he decided to come back because they hadn't found anyone to replace him, or whether or not that they didn't want to go out on a bum note. It was terrible. It was a really, really poor film. Christopher Waltz was an awful villain as well. But everything about it was bad. And I thought Skyfall was really overrated, the Mendes one as well. It certainly had its plus points. But I actually really liked Quantum of Solace. The first hour of that I thought was superb. And it just kind of came off the track. So nothing as good as Casino Royale since. So many critics will regard Skyfall as being great. I thought that really did get a bit silly, to be honest, and come off the tracks a bit. But and I didn't. The one thing about Spectre that I really had a problem with was the Leah Seydoux character. The Bond girls so far, Eva Green was magnificent, an all-time great one, and I really like Olga Kurylenko, if I say that right. The most underrated Bond girl ever. She was brilliant in Quantum of Solace, and since then it's gone backwards a bit. Judi Dench was one of the great Bond girls in Skyfall. But Leia Seydoux as this young, almost teenage love interest of a very old, haggard-looking Daniel Craig, it was an embarrassment. And when they brought her back as the overriding female character of this film, I was very, very disappointed. As disappointed as when that attention vampire Billie Eilish managed to do the Bond theme. Bond themes in recent years are, I think Sam Smith won an Oscar for one of the crappiest Bond films. Theme music ever, and I think he won an Oscar for it. But Bond themes have really been terrible. These often torpid, boring ballads, and of course Billie Eilish was more than capable of living up to that. She just gets everywhere. It's just so tedious, and it was a terrible Bond theme. So that wasn't particularly great. This time around, all of these films have kind of followed the same story from the Casino Royale, with the group of Spectre re-emerging and Blofeld re-emerging. And broadly speaking, this time around, it's someone that Blofeld and Spectre have as an enemy that's also a villain. And that's a character played by Rami Malek, who gradually emerges throughout the course of the movie. The openings of Bond movies have become hysterical. They're about 40 minutes long now. I really like this one. It features a very eerie sequence at the start, which is a Leah Seydoux character's mother being killed by what we later find out as the Rami Malek character. in a cabin on the ice, and it's a really it's kind of odd and eerie. And then we get this very big sequence in Italy where Lea Seydoux. Thankfully, in this film, I warmed to her a lot more. She's older. She's probably 5 years older. I warmed to her as a more adult character who was probably more convincing with Bond. But there's this really long, incredibly well shot sequence of them as lovers and him. Is it just me, or is in every single Daniel Craig Bond movie is he coming out of retirement? Doesn't he go either into or out of retirement in every single film he's been in? So he's off with Lea Seydoux, and they're going to start a life together. And I thought it was pretty poignant and moving because he has to come to terms with the thing that's driven him, which was the fact of his great love for Eva Green's character and the fact that he believes that she did the dirty on him, which we all know wasn't her fault, but he can't let it go. He visits her tomb to write on a piece of paper her name or something to show that, that he's got over it. And it all goes to hell in a handbasket very, very quickly, which leads to him blaming Lea Seydoux for Spectre finding him. I really like this sequence because we all know that wasn't true, but we also know that he is incapable of letting go what happened to him with Eva Green, and it's destroyed his life a second time. And I thought that was pretty decent. And then we move on to the film starts after about 40 minutes of this. I didn't have a problem with any of that. I thought it was really well done. And what follows is a remarkably old-fashioned Bond film. This is a Bond film that is in the Roger Moore submarine hangars, film where they've got nuclear submarines in a big hangar and have a big shootout. It's that kind of Bond film, which I didn't expect. It's quite old-fashioned in that score and actually a little bit low stakes. I mean, I wish they would try and write more interesting stories than just, a villain wants to drop biological weapons on the whole world. Because it's just been done too much. One thing that Skyfall had really going for it was the notion of a Bond villain that was out to get Judi Dench for leaving him to death and destruction. And that personal level was so much more strong than having an evil villain that's got a yet another deadly weapon to unleash on the public. Something else I haven't liked about the Craig era is the new characters that have come in. I thought Ralph Fiennes' character as a replacement for the Judi Dench, who was astonishing in her later years as M, I thought was kind of reverting back to the original M, who's very much in the background. I think Naomi Harris was one of the worst casting decisions. She was a terrible Bond girl and then became Miss Moneypenny, and I just found her to be cringe-inducing. Who's the other main one? Ben Whishaw I didn't like as Q. I'll say this, in this film, all of the people that have been added come together and work as one in this film, and I thought that actually amplified. I thought they cut down on their weaknesses and amplified their strengths, and I actually like that. I think it's the best showing for all of them. Excuse me. So it's got a lot of people from the previous films. Lea Seydoux as the love interest, I thought was presented with an interesting story here, and I kind of liked her, and I thought she was quite emotionally good, and the emotional arc with Bond was good. And they bring back Christopher Waltz as Blofeld in a pointless sequence, and he doesn't really get any chance to improve his lot. And it's one of the worst Bond villains, and that whole retrofitting of the story would have given the last Star Wars films a run for their money, making Blofeld his de facto brother and they both shared a father was the worst writing mistake in modern history in Bond films. It was a terrible shoehorned in clunky narrative, and they wisely pretty much ignore it. There's an interesting weapon here, which is something that is a biological weapon that is actually nanoparticles, little robots, that's genetically programmed, so I could shake your hand having this deadly weapon inside me, but it's tuned to your DNA, so it leaves me alone and it kills you. And I thought that was a pretty good thing. That was pretty cool. And there's a great moment where Bond goes to, well, he's virtually dead, but it's not what happens. And I thought that was really cool. I thought the best character in it, I'm in love with her, I think she's wonderful, is where is it? Anna de Armas, who has just beguiled me in Blade Runner and in Knives Out, where she was a star. She's incredible. She shows up as like the Britt Eklund man with the golden gun, doofus, annoying, incompetent, but gorgeous woman. And what we get is the opposite. It's a great sequence, and her character is really good. I love the way at the end that Bond went, "You were excellent," because I was just thinking, yeah, you were really great. Such a shame they couldn't keep her in the film. Jeffrey Wright as Felix Leiter I've always quite liked. And he shows up again. So I actually found the first half a lot better than the second half. It became quite ordinary. And the other major person in it is, of course, where is she? Lashana Lynch. Now, Lashana Lynch has got a lot of controversy for being 007 in this film. It's handled really well. It's actually quite funny, especially when she's saying, you know, when Bond returns to the MI6 and she keeps saying, what number have you given him? And no one pays her any attention. I've really liked her in the two films I've seen her in where she's played very, very different characters. Widows, where she played this hard-edged American single mum that gets swept up into this bank robbery, and a brilliant characterization as an American soul singer in the 60s in Bad Times at the El Royale. She was fantastic in that and a totally different character. And she's a totally different character here. Got a lot of time for her. An average character here, though. They didn't really write much in the way of new characters in this film. Rami Malek was equally as bad as Christopher Waltz. He was a terrible villain in this. I sometimes wonder about him as an actor because there's no way on earth he should have won an Oscar just for doing an impersonation of a bug-eyed Freddie Mercury. Even if you were doing impersonations, the other film, The Vice, about Dick Cheney, that performance was just masterful compared to the Bohemian Rhapsody acting. I didn't really rate it. But here, he's got like disfigurement and he just plays this really rote, boring villain who I lost interest in. In fact, that whole storyline I lost interest in. It wasn't occupying centre stage for me. It was more interesting in the whole Bond side and the Léa Seydoux side. It's far too long. It's nearly 3 hours long. I think it's at least 2 hours 45 minutes, and it just doesn't need to be that long. There's a lot of downtime here. Overall, I expected more, but I still think it's a really strong film. I thought Quantum of Solace was a brilliant film for the first half and not so good in the second half. This is a lot more consistent. I found this to be a very consistent film. I think the whole notion of the supervillain wasn't very well realised, either in the actor playing it or this submarine-based setting, which is very, very old school. A lot of the emotive stuff, Daniel Craig's performance here is really, really good. He walked through the awful Spectre. I don't blame him, but he looked like he'd had enough of playing Bond. He plays one of the more emotive Bonds. It's definitely in the same ballpark as On Her Majesty's Secret Service in that regards, with regards to the emotional life of Bond, which I thought was the high point, really. Some pretty decent sequences, cinematography and action-wise, although it does like peter out to a bit of a bog-standard Bond film over the last hour, an entire hour. So overall, I thought it was a much better way to go out than Spectre, and Daniel Craig's the high point of the film. I thought he was really good. And the emotional level of it was pretty decent. So I would say No Time to Die, a very solid 7 out of 10.